This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is March 13th, 2023. As always, joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia. The first time we've recorded after a win in over a month. What is up, man?
It feels good. It feels good. I was telling you before we recorded, and shout out to producer Kevin, because he'll understand what I mean by this. It doesn't matter how good or bad my team is in sports, whether it be the NBA or college football in this instance, and the comparison I'm making. When Florida football is bad, I always know we get a game at the end of the year against Florida State. And if we can win that game, that's all I care about. That is all I care about. So last night, when I, personally feel like the Magic aren't going to make the playoffs, it didn't matter. I was locked in, and I wanted to see us get a win against that dirty team from down south and all their dumb fans that are in the arena. And that's exactly what happened. We got to finally get to do what we should have been able to do the last time. Got to wave bye. Bye, Heat fans. Go back to probably your house in Orlando because you're just Heat fans that live in Orlando. But yeah, man, it was good. It was a good, fun night. I needed it.
It felt fantastic, honestly. Where I was trying to watch the game from my hotel room, the Wi-Fi. I'm not going to out the place that I was at because it was a nice establishment, but probably the worst hotel Wi-Fi that I've ever encountered, where I could be sitting in the same spot, have Wi-Fi 1 minute, and not have Wi-Fi for the next 10. So I was really only able to lock into like the final 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth quarter of the Heat game, and then throughout overtime. Famously or infamously at this point, the Magic are up double digits later in the fourth quarter, and I sent what I thought was an innocent text in group chat. I said, "Are the Magic are we gonna beat the Heat?" And you guys are like, "Dude, shut up! Don't say a word." Yeah. A few minutes later, I'm starting to feel pretty confident. I said, "The Magic are gonna beat the Heat." Now, producer Kevin, who I'm very thankful was covering the game and live tweeting the game, decided to semi out me on Twitter, did not name any names, essentially left it to 50-50. He threw the lob up, and Luke Sylvia just came in and grabbed the lob out of midair and just jammed it on me. He's like, listen,
Clipper
it wasn't me, so it was very obvious who it was. Yeah. But the Magic did win. I will admit, I was sweating it a little bit. I don't know, for those of you who have been on Magic Twitter for a long time, we used to have a hashtag that we would start anytime that somebody would prematurely call a game in the Magic's favor and then they would blow it. We would always hashtag blame Marquee for blame Magic Marquee for, like, I forget what game it was years ago, but he's like, oh, the Magic got this one in the bag. And then they lost. So I did not want to have my own blame Marquee moment. So when Jimmy Butler hit that three to push overtime, we're going to recap this game in its entirety. Your boy was sweating. I got to say, I was sweating a little bit.
I was sick.
Then just
I can't imagine being the one that it was your fault,
It was, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I like sometimes you're like, oh, I don't have any, bearing on the outcome of this game. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, maybe all of this is my fault.
Maybe.
Who knows? Because I tweet that, and the Heat instantly go on a 12-0 run to make it like a 3-point game. I think it was at that point. Didn't feel great. But the Magic won. The reason that I said it is because I call it a rule, but I guess it's more of a theory, as Luke and Kevin have let me know about this. If your team is up or trailing by less than 10, with less than 5 minutes to go, the game is almost always decided at that point. If you're up by 10 or more with less than 5 minutes to go, your team almost always wins. If you are down by less than 10, under 5 to go, you have a chance. Like if it's 4:54 to go and you're down by 9, I always tell myself, all right, we've got a shot. But if you're at 10 at that mark, usually the game is out of reach. I don't know if there's anyone that can do the numbers for me on this, but I feel pretty confident that like the overwhelming majority of the time, that rule or theory would apply and be true.
I got a rule. My rule is I don't get my own hopes up. That's
True.
my rule. I can't, especially with this team. I'll never. Nope. It's going to take me a long time till this team is very good for me to be like, we're up 10 plus with 5 to go. It's a wrap. Because I know a young team like this, and as bad as we've been the last decade, we would find a way. We would absolutely find a way. So I'm glad. And like you said, we will recap this game. But we know that's why you guys are here. You want to hear it. So here's a taste, and we'll revisit it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Jazz game from Thursday. We'll talk about the Heat game from Saturday night as well. And then Luke and I are going to have a conversation of, is the season over? Like, we're going to take a look at all of the scenarios, take a look at some of the tiebreakers. Producer Kevin took the time to kind of lay out a lot of the scenarios for us. So we'll talk about that. And then we're still going to run the Tankathon. We'll decide whether or not the season is over. After that, we'll run the Tankathon and see, well, if the season is over, then kind of what's going to happen. Obviously, we'll take a look at the week ahead with the Magic hitting the West Coast for the road trip this week. And that'll basically do it for this episode. Let's get into the state of the Magic, Luke. The Magic went 1-2 on this past week, which brought them to a record of 28-40 on the season. Still have the 5th worst record in the league. They are still 13th in the Eastern Conference. Currently 3.5 games back of Chicago for the final play-in spot. 3 games back of Washington, who's sitting at 11. 3 games back of Indiana, who are sitting at 12. And producer Kevin wanted me to mention the Magic are 4 games back of Toronto, 4-9. The reason I said producer Kevin wanted me to mention that, I still feel like that's a little bit far out of the Magic's reach. I just don't see us getting to 9. I don't see us getting to 10. It's going to take somewhat of a miracle for that to happen.
Alert.
But we'll talk more about that in a bit. The Magic have an offensive rating of 111.6 on the season, which ranks 25th in the league. They have a defensive rating of 114.1, which ranks 19th in the league. Overall net rating on the season is negative 2.5, which is good for 26th. Jonathan Isaac, obviously out with the adductor tear. Franz Wagner is listed as day-to-day, questionable for Tuesday's game at San Antonio after suffering a right ankle sprain with about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter against the Heat Saturday night. Kyle Lowry, Luke, I know we've talked about this. I know he's, he's my least favorite player. I know he's up there for you. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how this guy continues to do stuff like this game after game, month after month, season after season, and hasn't been met with significant consequences. Had no chance on making a play on the ball after, I think it was Wendell secured the rebound, but just decides to literally dive in front of Franz Wagner, landing on his right ankle, which effectively took Franz out for the rest of the game. And right now he's day-to-day, but who knows how long this is going to keep Franz Wagner out at this point. This is the second time in a week that he's had an ankle sprain. I believe to the same ankle, if I'm not mistaken. So I just hate him so much. I just have to say that every time we talk about Kyle Lowry, I never have anything good to say about him. It started many years ago in the playoff series. Michael Carter-Williams getting elbowed in the nose, running down the court, blood dripping from his face. And that continued over into the 2020 season when right before the playoffs start, Kyle Lowry basically swipes Aaron Gordon's leg out from underneath him. Leg flies up in the air, tears the hamstring. He doesn't play in the playoffs for the Magic, which was a big deal. I know we're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of that series, but we've talked about this. A fully healthy Magic team beats the Bucks in that series. It's just the guy just has no redeeming qualities. I'm sure he's a great person in real life, maybe. I have my doubts. But on the basketball floor, the dude is just a dirtbag. And now he's hurt our sweet, sweet Franz.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, you see the play last night, and if it was a guy that didn't have a reputation of dirty plays, then I'd be like, oh, maybe he was just trying to get to the ball stop the ball, and maybe that was it. But I just don't trust him. I don't trust that he didn't see Franz out of the corner of his eye and didn't get in his path and make a dirty play. So, I've never given this guy the benefit of the doubt. I'm definitely not doing it now. So I don't like him.
A quick shout out before we get into Thursday's game against the Jazz. I want to give a quick shout out to the folks that help financially support the Sixth Man Show, our patrons. If you are interested in joining our Patreon community, you can find us at patreon.com/the Sixth Man Show. For $2 a month plus some other tiers, you can help support the show. We have other benefits like getting discounted tickets to Magic home games, joining our monthly Zoom calls where we hang out with our patrons and talk Orlando Magic basketball, and our Discord community. Again, you can find us at patreon.com/the Sixth Man Show. And we always shout out our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons. So shout out to the Court Cousins, Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Normal, Magic Player History, Julio, Gabe Gaines, Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, The Distract, Donkey Punch Dave, It's Not Okay to Say Okiki, Pierre A, Migzors, Nostalgia, and M&M's, Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Lil Penny, Eduardo Sanchez, Drum, Danimal, Dutto 15, Bobby Skinner, Goody 93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez, Fuchsia, Juan Geraldo, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Jose Esquilin, Destined for Greatness, Caleb Pete, Cannibalism, Time Mr. TV, Joe Rothfuss, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95 Shred, Junior Bruce, Half Rican, Shahin 177, Bobby the Don, Himlo Ban Himro, R Improv 221, Ray Pastrana, Magic Kid 714, Let's Spank Don't Tank, Soft Taco, Jesse, Fuego Nando, Phantom Wolf 72, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampy, Random Hustle, Bull, his first name is his last name. Shout out to all of our patrons. Again, you can find us at patreon.com/the Sixth Man Show. All right, we're calling an audible here. Luke Sylvia punched Kyle Lowry in the face in the middle of our episode and was assessed a flagrant 2 technical foul. He's been thrown from the game. And here to sub in is producer Kevin Tucker.
Hey, first off, so proud of Luke for doing right by all Magic fans and by Michael Carter Williams and Aaron Gordon and now Franz Wagner, the latest victim of Kyle Lowry, just being an absolute clown. But yeah, glad to be subbing in here. It'll be fun to talk about definitely the Miami game with you and maybe a little bit of play-in conversation here in a little bit.
This is showbiz. The show goes on.
That's
Life
right.
happens.
Yep.
But we're rocking with producer Kevin Tucker. The man always steps in when he's called on. He's the ultimate professional. The epitome of staying ready. He's cold, rips off the warm-ups,
That's right.
comes into the game in rhythm, knocks down a couple threes whenever we need him.
Or like
Very
I said,
much appreciated.
Like I said last night, I'm not the stepdad. I'm the dad who stepped it. What was it? I'm
the
dad who stepped up. That's right. That's the phrase.
That's right. Perfect. All right, let's talk about this Jazz game, Kevin. So kind of going right to the end to jump ahead quite a bit. Magic, you just need to stop in this game to give yourself a chance. You're down 1 with 52.5 seconds left. Shot clock is winding down. Ochai Agbaji misses a 3-pointer. Walker Kessler gets the rebound, puts it back in, and the Gary Harris foul. Very reminiscent of earlier in the year when we played Utah. In Utah, Mo Bamba doesn't get the rebound off of that free throw. Walker Kessler gets the ball, puts it back in. And that is really what did the Magic in. Rest of the way is just free throws. People have argued, back and forth about, fouling and whatnot. But the rest of the way here, Magic actually, Paolo Banchero misses a free throw, down 4 with 32 seconds to go. Would have made it a 2-point game. Instead, it's a 3-point game. Lauri Markkanen also has this crazy shot with 10 seconds left that essentially iced the game for the Utah Jazz. But Kevin, you and I talked about this really at length during our intermission that we had here, recording the episode, that it just comes down to the Magic giving up, 131 points in this game to the Utah Jazz. I went back through the archives of what has been this season. And the Magic in 7 games this year where they've given up 131 points, they've lost all 7 of those games. And 3 of those 7 games have come in the last 9 games after the All-Star break, where we would have liked to see this big push and a massive improvement on the defensive end. We've seen some of the worst defensive performances on the year so far for the Magic, Kev.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. When I hear we've had 7 of those games, actually, when you told me, my first reaction was Maybe it was earlier in the year when we weren't as healthy, or maybe, recently not having Wendell. But unfortunately, none of those correlations, add up. Like you said, 3 of them have come in the last, 9 games, you said. That's not great. Even, though Jonathan Isaac is out, he shouldn't be the one that is relied upon to keep teams under 130 points. Like, that's just not good enough. That's a little frustrating, a little confusing. I don't know if there's something we can attribute it to. I don't know if it's just late in the season and legs are tired, and I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely not what you want to see. I also, really quickly want to point out, this Jazz game, especially, like you mentioned, absolute deja vu with Walker Kessler. I mean, literally, it's the exact same thing. Can't box him out. He gets an offensive rating. But by the way, Walker Kessler is unreal, man. That dude is so good, and he's going to be real good. We've got a great young core, but I'm jealous in a lot of ways of Utah for him. I think he's going to be awesome. The other thing we have to mention it. Like you said, it's a 1-possession game, under a minute to go. This game, giving up 131 stinks, but this game was lost at the free throw line. Magic went 20 of 31 from the free throw line, while the Jazz went 20 of 21. That's 95% to 64%. Just not good enough. You mentioned Paolo missing the free throw there after the Walker, Kessler, and one. That was just, that was kind of a snapshot into the whole night. Really hate to lose a game that way. But yeah, all those things combined, giving up 131 points. I know you didn't have Wendell for this game, but either way, yeah, not great. And especially if you're talking about a team still trying to get in the play-in, which the players are all still referring to that. And I know we'll talk about this later. Games like this, you can't lose them. So that was definitely a disappointing one to drop there on Thursday.
Yeah, what is kind of doubly frustrating is that it was a really good offensive performance for the Magic.
Yeah.
Score 124 points, almost shoot 47% from the floor, 47% from the three-point line. You made the point, Kevin, the game was very much lost at the free throw line, 20 of 31. You leave 11 points on the board there. I mean, 42 to 36 rebound advantage to the Jazz, 27 to 21 assist advantage to the Jazz. But the Magic, 10 turnovers to Utah 17, kind of helped keep them in the game at points despite the poor free throw shooting. This Magic team scores 124 points. They have to win, Kevin. This year, when scoring 124 points or better, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The Magic are 7-3 in games this year where they score 124 points or more. So you put up that many points, like, it has to be enough to come away with the victory. And the fact that this wasn't just solely due to free throw shooting and lack of defense is really frustrating. This is a team that I think we talked about earlier in the episode is 19th in defensive rating on the year. Top 10 in the last 15 games, I think, since the beginning of the year. They're 12th. I think post All-Star break, they're 16th. So 3 of those 130-point plus opponent outputs in the last 9 games is going to drop down that defensive rating a little bit. But, I mean, Franz had a great game. Paolo had a great game. Markelle Fultz had a great game. Like, you go down the list, it's just full of good offensive performances. But the free throw shooting and the defense just not good enough, and leads to the Utah Jazz sweeping the Magic on the season 2-0.
Man, it's a really tough sweep. Again, when you think back to the game in Utah, that was almost identical to this as far as how it came down to the last minute and losing the exact same way. Like, man, that's really tough. That's 2 very winnable games that were dropped. Obviously, like we said, over the course of the whole 48 minutes, not enough defense. But again, it still came down to that last minute and just couldn't make the plays, and the Jazz did. And so, but like you said, Markelle, Paolo, Franz, what a showing from them. Like, seeing those 3 guys at each, different points in the game, each just kind of took over for sections of that game. And it was a beautiful sight to see it. Another glimpse into the future of this team, but just not enough to get the win on Thursday.
Last thing that I want to say about Walker Kessler, I don't know if you recall this at all, but I had talked about this during kind of like the pre-draft process last year. I said I would have loved to see us trade back into like the later first round and draft a backup center. And Walker Kessler is one of the guys that I mentioned, because this was still, we didn't know what was going to happen with Mo Bamba, if he was going to be back, what the Magic's plans were in free agency. I didn't think he was going to be this good. But for a Jazz team who got, 5 first-round picks and trading away Rudy Gobert, having Walker Kessler, like, contracts aside, which player would you rather have right now?
Facts.
You would probably say Walker Kessler.
Yep. Yeah. If this trade, if they
Home
went
run
back
by the Jazz.
Yeah. If Minnesota came back and was like, hey, we'll just give you Rudy for Walker straight up. Jazz say no. Forget all the picks. That's not happening. It's crazy. And for it to happen year one that trade is going to go down as maybe the worst ever. Definitely like top 3, but maybe the worst ever. It's awful.
I think it's already top 3.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't see it getting a lot better. Like, we're going to look at one of those 5 picks from the Jazz, and they're going to draft like a multi-time All-Star. And we're going to say, oh, man, this kid is incredible. Oh, yeah, they got this pick from that Rudy Gobert deal. And then all of a sudden, it will be the worst trade of all time.
Yep. And 2-time Defensive Player of the Year Walker Kessler, whatever he ends up being out of it. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy that we're like, what is it, like 7-8 months removed from that deal? We're not even a full year removed from that deal, and we're already like, it is absolutely terrible.
Yep. Awful. We knew it was bad at the time. Like, everyone was like, whoa. But now it's like, whoa. Like, it's bad.
Yeah. It's not bad, Kevin. The next day after a Magic victory, you've got that victory feeling. It's just a fantastic day. Nothing can go wrong. And then you got to worry about what's for dinner. But all of a sudden, no, you don't have to worry about what's for dinner, because after every Magic victory the next day, you can get 50% off your online order from Papa John's with code MAGICWIN. Kevin, you know what I found out today very tragically?
I
we
heard
just
about this.
moved. The closest Papa John's to me here in Homosassa does not accept code MAGICWIN promo offer.
Unacceptable.
They will never get my business. I will never eat a bite of pizza from that Papa John's that doesn't come at the hands of a code MAGICWIN deal for me.
It's tragic, man. Like, what are we doing? Like, come on now.
We'll have to call our people. We'll have to call our people, have our people call their people and be like, come on, y'all, get it together.
We do have some
You're
people.
missing out on money.
Yep.
I'm in Homosassa now. I'm going to be spreading the word about the Magic from, Ponce de Leon Boulevard all the way up to Crystal River. I'm going to be telling everybody about the Orlando Magic, and that is business that you could be getting Homosassa Papa John's.
Yep.
So shame on you.
Shame on
But
them.
if you don't live in Homosassa, folks, again, make sure every day following Magic victories, you get 50% off your online order from Papa John's with code MAGICWIN. Speaking of a Magic win, we are now going to talk about a Magic win. So, talked about this at the top of the show. I was at a hotel this weekend. We were celebrating one of my friends' birthdays, and all the little kids are together. And 7:00 rolls around, and I'm in my hotel room, and I go to fire up the old Spectrum app that I'm paying money for every month to be able to watch Bally Sports Florida. You know what? The app told me I couldn't watch Bally Sports Florida. I was at a hotel in Orlando. You know what they did not have on the TV at the hotel in Orlando, Florida?
I'm going to guess
Bally Sports Florida.
Yeah.
So I tried to go to Stream East, Kevin. I'm not an advocate for breaking the law, but nothing will stand in between me and Magic basketball. I go to Stream East, Wi-Fi in my hotel room cuts out. I was sitting in the exact same spot. 1 minute I had Wi-Fi, the next minute I did not have Wi-Fi. So again, not the stepdad, but the dad that stepped up, Kevin Tucker, live tweeted the game. I got to watch like the last 5 minutes of regulation and then into overtime. We're not going to rehash what was said in the group chat when the Magic have the lead in the final minutes, and I maybe prematurely declared victory. However, the Heat in the closing minutes, they close the gap. Jimmy Butler, as time expires, gets the shot off somehow, some way. Of course it goes in. Jimmy Butler, who everyone knows is not a three-point shooter. He lives and dies in the mid-range and at the rim. But of course, game on the line in Amway, 2 guys in his face, knocks it down. We're going overtime. And now I'm sweating because I declared this victory, Kevin, and all of a sudden it's not going to be a victory. But the Magic come out in overtime. They score, the Heat score, and then I think the Magic go on like an 8-0 run to go up 8 with a 3 and some change left in overtime. And all of a sudden now I'm feeling really, really good after that Wendell shot fake baseline drive and the dunk that he had. I'm feeling really good, and sure enough, the Magic are able to close it out and win at home 126 to 114.
Yep.
I'm reading that, and even now it seems strange that you go into overtime and win by 12. That almost never happens.
Never happens, especially scoring 18 in overtime. But the Magic absolutely just blitzed them from the start of overtime. And I don't know if this is because the Heat were on a back-to-back. They played the night before. I don't know if that played into it at all. But, I mean, it didn't hurt that you didn't miss. Like, they started 5 of 5 or 6 of 6, something like that, to start overtime. And so Heat's shots weren't falling except for their first one. And so it all kind of added up. But, yeah, it was great basketball in overtime, especially, good ball movement, open shots, all that good stuff. But, man, that was a nail biter for sure. And, I mean, it happened already earlier this year. You had a lead against Miami. I think, what did we say earlier? It was an 8-point lead
with 5 minutes to go.
With 5 minutes to go, and you lost that one. It was 10 at some point, but yeah. So I was sweating too, like as they were on that 12-0 run to make it a 3-point game, and then tied it again. Honestly, once it went to overtime, I was like, I don't know. I mean, all the momentum was with Miami.
We've seen this movie before,
100%. And so for the Magic to turn around and just, like I said, just blitz them coming into overtime. I mean, they just took over and never looked back. But, I mean, I think looking at this game, there's a lot of things we could talk about. Before we get into, like, certain players, I think we got to talk about Wendell, Paolo, all that stuff. I do want to talk about, just briefly, the end of regulation and the moment that set up the Jimmy Butler 3 with some of the strangest officiating I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, the Magic... well, let me back up. Who was it? Was it Paolo? Paolo fouls Jimmy Butler on the 3-pointer. Fouls. They review it. They overturn it. That's wonderful. That's great. Then Then Eric Spoelstra gets in the ref's ears.
Well, they're going to jump the ball at that point for possession.
They're going to jump ball because that's what they usually do with these overturned calls. Eric Spoelstra's like, "Hey, yo, check that. We had the ball." So they go back and check it. And they determine not that the Heat had the ball when the whistle was blown, but that possession was imminent when the whistle was blown, which I went back and watched it. That foul was called before the ball was possessed by Miami. I might have even been Lowry who was getting the rebound. I don't remember. The whistle was blown before there was possession. And now they're calling things based on imminent possession. Like, okay, yes, you're right. The ball was in the air. It was going towards the Miami Heat player's hand. He was going to rebound it, but he hadn't rebounded it yet. And so, like, who gets to decide what's imminent or not? Like, that blew my mind. That's, ended up setting them up to, to have another possession there. I had never seen anything like that before.
The other thing, Kevin, is I don't know how many times I've seen a whole review after a challenge. First of all, I think they were reviewing whether or not it was, like, they thought Mosey wanted to review whether or not it was a 3, and Mosey's like, no, I want to review that it was not a foul at all.
Right.
So they're like, okay, we have to go and review this whole play, because I think maybe they were going to take a look to see if it was like a flagrant 2.
That's correct. They were going to go back and look first before the challenge. They initiated the review first and said, we're going to go see if it's a flagrant. This year they're so big on the landing space and blah, 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 blah. Which, by the way, Jimmy Butler kicks his legs out and doesn't give Paolo a place to land. You could argue it was an offensive foul. Anyway, so they're going to review the flagrant. Mosley says, I want to challenge. They're like, oh, you want to see if it's a 3 or not? He's like, no, I want to challenge the foul. And so for them to go back and actually look at it and realize it wasn't a foul, that was just.
But I don't know how many times I've seen them come back, make a ruling on the play, and then somebody is campaigning for something else, and then they go back again. Like, no, you made the call on the floor.
Right.
Let's tip the ball. Like, let's throw the ball in the air and see what happens.
Yeah.
But of course, it's Eric Spoelstra. It's the Miami Heat. Oh, okay, now we're going to go back. And look, at the end of the day, you want the right call. Like, regardless if it goes your team's way or not, yes, the Heat were going to get possession of that ball. It was imminent. Whether or not we've ever seen that or how many times that's been called. But at the end of the day, ball don't lie. And the Magic win 126 to 114.
Yep.
But yeah, Jimmy hits that shot, and I'm not feeling so good all of a sudden. But Markelle comes down, pulls up. That first shot was true and nothing but net. And I immediately felt confident. I was like, okay, we're starting overtime off on the right foot, just getting right to a bucket. And sure enough, I think the Magic, what was it? 78%, I believe it was, in that overtime period from the floor. 77.8. 3 of 3 from the three-point line, outscored the Miami Heat 18-6. And it really just looked like the Heat ran out of gas. I mean, the Magic were hitting shots. Talked about, Wendell making that dunked 8-0 run after they kind of trade buckets back and forth. But then Wendell comes back with the corner three, put the Magic up 11, and that's when it was over. That's when I could finally exhale. It was like, all right, we're not getting a repeat of that game from, what was that, the middle of February?
February, yeah.
Just about a month ago, like February 11th, I believe it was. But always great to get a win over the Heat, especially in your own building, an overtime win. I think, of the most clutch games in the league this year out of any team in the NBA.
Yeah.
So a team
that was their
has
39th, which is crazy. That almost, well, now, I mean, we're not even to the end of the season, so like half of their games have been clutch games. That's stressful. I can't imagine.
No, thank you.
I also wanted
absolutely no part of that.
Yeah, absolutely not. I also wanted to, I mean, as we always do, kind of go through the box score, look at some guys. I think you have to start with the return of Wendell. How good was he, man? He was so good on both ends of the floor on Saturday night. 27 points, 11 boards, 12 of 17 from the field. Let's clarify that. He was 10 of 10 from 2. 2 of 7 from 3. He did not miss from inside the 3-point line on Saturday. He was a machine. So good to have him back. I loved Coach Mosley's quote in his post-game presser. Literally said, that guy does not know how good he is. And it's beautiful.
I love the quote. And then they asked Wendell about it, and he's like, that's been kind of the story of my career. Like, my confidence has waned, and that's been like my biggest challenge. It's like, Wendell, man, when you are on, man, like, how many times did we talk last year? Like, is Wendell a top X center? Is he a top 10 center? Is he a top 5 center? Because after you get past like the Jokic's and Embiid's, like, it's a conversation. Every guy does things a little bit differently. A couple of years ago, we were adamant that Nikola Vucevic was a top 3 center in the league because it was Jokic, it was Embiid, and then who? Like, it's the 2-time All-Star. So when that kid is on, man, especially defensively, he's one of the best centers in the league. And when we talk about him making $12 million a year, if that kid can believe and see what we all see and play with that kind of confidence on a nightly basis, that's when we're talking about this guy being like a 19 and 11 guy on a nightly basis.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, 27-11 for him. Paolo, near triple-double, 17, 10, and 9. We talked about free throws on Thursday. The team went 17 of 20 from the free throw line on Saturday, so love to see them bounce back. Oh, of course. Wait a second. I almost forgot. I almost moved on without looking at the bench. Jalen.
Well, I wasn't going to let you. I thought you were going to talk about Franz, because Franz was
on
his way to a fantastic game.
I was going to hold that for the end. We've got a lot of things to say about Kyle Lowry. I think we should talk about Jalen first, though. I mean, holy smokes.
What is there
John.
to say that you and I haven't already said a million times?
Sheesh.
16 points, 5 of 10 from the floor, 4 of 6 from behind the arc, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks, flirted with the 5x5. All right. We're looking at, the stocks, like the combined steals and blocks, 7 combined 7 combined steals and blocks. 5 of those came in the fourth quarter and overtime. 2 steals and a block in the fourth quarter, and then added another steal and another block in the overtime period.
Unreal.
Last 20 games for Jalen Suggs, 24.6 minutes per game. He's averaging 10 points, 3.3 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 1.5 steals. So 2.6 assists to 1.4 turnovers, 43% from the floor, 39% from the three-point line for Jalen Suggs. Absolute turnaround, shooting the basketball. That's a quarter of the season. He's shooting almost 40% from the field. And I think against the Jazz, he was like 1 of 6 from the three-point line. So if he even has a decent shooting game, we're looking at over 40% his last 20 games. That is not nothing, Kevin.
For a guy that shot, what was it, 22 last year?
21, 22, somewhere
21.
around there.
And guys, this is a second-year player who has played 91 games.
Who didn't have a healthy offseason.
Yep. Twice. I'm just saying, man. That's like, we always talk about Jalen stock on this show. But man, if you haven't picked yours up, now's the time. Here's the thing, and I've said this to you guys, I don't know how much I've said this on the show. I don't know offensively what Jalen will end up being. Obviously, like you said, the last 20 games, the three-point shooting has just been night and day and gives an even better glimmer of hope for him, his future offensively. I don't know what he's going to be. He may, be a perennial slasher, a la like Dwayne Wade. I'm not saying he's going to be Dwayne Wade, but Dwayne Wade made a living just getting to the rim, getting the foul line. That's what he did. He may end up being more of I don't want to call him a spot-up three-point shooter because he's always going to be a guy that tries to attack the rim. But I don't know how far his ceiling is offensively. But everything else that he does might end up being elite. Defensively, no question about it. But everything else, man, everything except scoring is absolutely no limit to what he can be. Scoring is the question mark, but he's answering a lot of those questions lately. So I'm just so pumped. Like, he deserves it. He's worked so hard. And man, he is as much of a part of the future of this team as almost anybody. I really believe that.
So I just went back and looked last year, 21.4% from the three-point line so far in 43 games. He only played 48 last year.
Right.
So if Jalen is able to play 6 of these next 14 games, he will have played, more games than he did all of last season. This year, 31.6% from the three-point line.
Wow.
That's a 10.2% increase in 1 year if he's able to stay at this level the rest of the way.
Right. And that's not like a segment. That is the entire season. A 10% increase an entire season over the previous season. Wow, that's crazy.
What would you say is like the biggest factor for Jalen? Like, what part of his game is missing to where if he improves that, like he's going to be a high, like elite level role player for the rest of his career?
2 things. My instant reaction to that question. The first is his play style, a lot like Dwayne Wade, like I mentioned, and they joke about it on the broadcast all the time. He is just constantly getting beat up. I mean, he is constantly on the floor, constantly getting contact on either side of the ball. And at some level, you love to see it, right? But at the other side, it's like, pick your spots, bro. Like, we need you. And so I'm a little fearful that he continues to play like that. But I guess to answer your question, pick your spots more when you're going to just go all out, go crazy, get physical. Pick your spots more because we need you in the long term. We need you healthy. And secondly, I think he's still, like we said, second-year player has only played 91 games. That's basically just over a normal season for guys that are healthy. He still, I would say, has turnover problems. I don't think that's undocumented necessarily, but it's the types of turnovers. Even this Miami game, you think about, there was the one play Jalen got the block, and then I'm trying to remember it. Bull like started, leaking out, and Jalen tried the behind the back pass, which if it connects, I mean, that's a top 10 play of the season because Bull just yams it down and the place goes crazy. But it's a careless turnover. It goes right to a Miami defender, and so that's a bit of an extreme example. But I think Jalen still kind of puts himself in tough spots where he's got to make an impossible pass, or he overestimates like the pass that he can make. To be fair though, he's doing less like dribbling turnovers. If you remember, like he really struggled for a long time with ball slipping out of his hand, ball dribbling off his foot, whatever it might be. He's cleaned that up a lot. And so I think picking your times to go crazy, get physical, go fast, being able to slow it down, read the room, pick your spots, limit the turnovers. I think those are the things. Like we've always said, offensively, his shooting stroke's there, and we're starting to see that. I'm not worried about that. He's always going to be able to get to the rim. It's the other things, cleaning up those things, and man, he's going to be an absolute, like, just a positive player. He's already positive on the defensive end, but offensively, that's what will make him a positive player to me.
Well, I thought for sure you were going to say 3-point shooting. All we need from Jalen is for him to be league average.
Absolutely.
Get to 35%, and I'm good, right?
Yep.
10% increase in between 1 and year 2. Why can't we get another 5% increase in between this year and next year?
And that's why I didn't mention it, because I'm not worried about it. I'm not even worried about it anymore.
I'd like to see a little bit more than 20 games. Like, we get to the end of the season here, and he has like a 30-plus game stretch of shooting 40% from 3. Then my concerns will be gone. Then I'll say, all right, this kid is going to be, because, and let's say this is the new normal for Jalen Suggs. If Jalen is a 37+% 3-point shooter, look out, because then the amount of gravity that he's going to cause offensively, it's going to be that much easier for him to get to the rim or to get past his man into those 1-2 dribble pull-ups that we know that he loves, that he's already pretty good at. Like, that's to me one of the most exciting things that I think helps him project as a good shooter is the fact that he's already pretty good from the mid-range. So Jalen Suggs, I mean, you and I have been singing his praises for seemingly forever. You've always seen the flashes. I've always believed, and this is the other thing, Kevin. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but if Jalen can figure out that part of his game, where is his ceiling then?
Yep.
Because if he becomes a real threat from the perimeter and guys start closing out on him hard, if they don't, he's lighting you up. If you do, I'm getting past you. I've got the mid-range jumper. I can get right to the rim. If this kid ever is able to add a consistent floater, where is the ceiling for him offensively? I all of a sudden I don't see it. I'm not saying he's going to be like a 25 game per game scorer, but why can't he be a 17, 18 point per game scorer as well as being one of the best perimeter defenders in the league? I'm not seeing the roadblock for him if he's able to figure out the shooting.
Yeah, 100%. And everyone's talked about, who's the starting 2 guard. Obviously, Gary has earned that this year. But yeah, if Jalen's 35, 37% from 3 going forward, that's his spot. Like, I mean, that is his. And that's really exciting to think about, especially we've always talked about, being able to surround Paolo and Franz with shooters. Gary obviously has been tremendous this year from 3 and not looking to take that away from anybody. But, Jalen could also be that, if he ends up, continuing on this trend as far as his 3-point shooting goes. But to add the defense, and Gary's a good defender too, don't get me wrong, but Jalen, man, Jalen's different. And again, year 2, what is Jalen? I know we're talking offense. What is a more veteran savvy Jalen Suggs defender going to look like year 5,
Drew Holiday,
year 6, year 7? Like, but here's the thing. I don't think Drew Holiday was this good 90 games into his career. I don't.
Probably not.
Like
Gary Payton. Then are we looking at the glove 2.0?
I'm not going to get too carried away here. I'm not going to do comps or anything like that. But that's where my mind goes when I watch this guy. Like last night, 7 stocks, and I'm like, that last night was his 91st NBA game. Like, man, when the guy's doing his 200th, 250th NBA game, what is he going to look like? It's crazy to think about. Very exciting.
You just raised a pretty interesting question in my mind, at least. Jalen Suggs finishes the year last 34 games shooting 38, 39, 40% from the three-point line. The Magic do have the team option this year that they can exercise for Gary Harris. I'm not advocating for taking shooting away from this team.
Nope.
But if the Magic are going to take another, $13 million and roll that into free agency, if there's somebody that they have in mind that a couple of weeks ago they weren't all that sure that they wanted to pursue that or would have the money to pursue that because they wanted to keep Gary. Now you're looking at Jalen Suggs. Man, maybe next year he can be your starting shooting guard. Now do those conversations change, Kevin? Like, oh, maybe we do want to free up that cap space and pursue someone else because we have Jalen Suggs.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the answer is no, honestly. Like, I hope we keep Gary, even if he's coming off the bench.
I probably subscribe to that thinking as well.
Sure. Yeah. I figured you would, but my initial reaction to that is no. I'm okay to pay Gary $12 million to come off the bench, honestly. Like, he's not a one-way player, great shooter. And honestly, statistically this year, I don't know if he might have, I'm trying to think the last couple of games, he might have come down a little bit, but I mean, earlier, just a couple of weeks ago, he was like 2nd in the league, 4th in the league, something like that in percentage. I know he hadn't played the threshold of games at the time.
43% this year from behind the arc.
Sheesh. Yeah. I mean, I'm not letting that walk. That's worth $12 million, even if he's coming off the bench. But what I was saying was he's not just that's not all he does. He is a solid defender. He, is very capable of being a part of the offense where he's moving the ball. He's not just chucking it every time. He's not a chucker. He takes his open shots, plays hard. So yeah, long story short, and we'll talk more about that as we get into the offseason after we play in the play-in game. Just kidding. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I really hope Gary Harris is back next year for sure.
Kevin, that's a great segue into our next segment here. I'm calling it, is the season over?
Jonathan, I got to interrupt you.
With Luke?
I got to interrupt you. No, we can't go there yet. We got one more thing to talk about with this stupid Miami game. We got to talk about Kyle Lowry.
I've already given my thoughts on Kyle Lowry. I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, no, that wasn't enough. That was an abbreviated glimpse. I need more from you about Kyle Lowry.
I've given the Kyle Lowry rant 17 times on this show. I hate his guts. He's my least favorite player that has ever played. He's a scumbag. He's a dirtbag. I don't understand how he continues to get away with his antics year after year after year. But like, that's all I have to say. Like, he's Kyle Lowry. I can't stand him, and he's always going to be this way.
Thank you. I needed to hear that from you. He's the worst. He is the worst. And I tweeted this from the account during the game. I'm never one to promote violence. I don't think it's the solution. But if Coach Mosley had thrown Michael Carter-Williams into that game, and Michael Carter-Williams just happened to throw an elbow in the direction of Kyle Lowry and gave him a bloody nose as payback for 2019, I would not have been upset. I would have been very happy. Can't stand the guy. And, this just the whole Franz thing just adds to the frustration, the tension with Kyle Lowry. You could say, you could watch that replay and go, I didn't do it on purpose. I don't know and I don't care. I don't know and I don't care. He's got the reputation. So to add Franz Wagner to the list,
it's a non-basketball play. You can't convince me that it wasn't dirty.
I know. I'm just saying, you mentioned earlier, there's no benefit of the doubt for him anymore. Like, he's just absolutely thrown that out the window. So yeah, for Franz to go down, get hurt, and then, because it was kind of a weird play, it was kind of a little bit of chaos going on. I didn't fully understand what happened until you saw the replay, and I was like, of course that's who it is. Of course it's Kyle Lowry. So yeah, Franz, we'll see. Hopefully he's not out for long, because I still want this team to make a run. And now that sets us up perfectly for our next little segment here.
Well, shout out to good grief. Let me try that again. Well, shout out to Reddit. I'm just going to say FKL. They're going to know
FKL.
exactly what that means.
Yep.
But yeah, let's talk about whether or not the season is over. I thought this was going to be maybe not so interesting of a segment with myself and Luke because him and I are very much kind of aligned in our thinking and feeling. You understand where the season is going.
Yep.
Most likely.
Yep.
But you still very much have the hope alive. It's not that part of me has given up for sure, but it's not a feeling of giving up. It's just like, I'm just going to enjoy the last 14 games of the season. Whatever happens, happens, because I truly feel like at this point, we are playing with house money. Given the way that the season started, the fact that the Magic even have a outside chance of making the play-in this season, to me, the fact that you're coming away with it with your for sure Batman and Robin of the future and Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, I'm good with as long as we don't go 3-11, 4-9 or 5-9 over the course of the next 14 games, I'll be fine. Go 500 the rest of the way. Go 6-8, go 8-6, go 7-7. I'm good. But you've kind of dove a little bit into some of the tiebreaker scenarios, especially with Washington, Chicago, Toronto a little bit, Indiana. Lay that out for us, because you're the one that really did the research on this, so I'm glad that I'm here talking to you about this. Your thoughts on whether or not the season is over, Kevin.
So hearing you express your feelings, you and I are not that far off, I think, because I'm very much in the same mental space. I'm not sitting here either, oh, we are going to make it, or, oh, I'm going to be disappointed if we don't. I'm very comfortable with where this team is. Obviously, the 5-20 start, just brutal. Regardless of playing or not, that was no fun. And obviously, lots of reasons why that happened. So that wasn't fun. But excluding that, this has been a very promising season. The future is very bright. All those things I totally agree with. What I don't agree with from other people in the Magic community who are just completely writing this off, saying season's over. I can't get there mentally, because here we are Sunday night. The Magic are 3.5 games back of the 10 seed. I know there's only 14 games left, and that's tough. So it is a long shot. Don't get it twisted. I'm not sitting here saying we're going to do it.
You had to give me a percentage. Where are you? I'm
25?
at less than 10.
Oh, I'm at
20. You're that high?
25. That's not that high.
Holy smokes!
25% is not high.
That's, to me, that's high.
Okay, it's higher than you, but that's not a high percent. 25% is not a high. That's not a high probability, dude.
Mathematically, no, but
no.
From where my expectation level is, that is high.
25%. Okay, that's where I am. Here's where I sit. So let me look at the standings first before I get into the tiebreakers and stuff. So the biggest thing that happened this past week was Washington continues to fall apart, and Chicago has now taken over the 10 seed, which is interesting. I didn't really see that happening a couple weeks ago, but regardless, Magic 3.5 games back of them and 3 games back of the Pacers and the Wizards, who are tied. They're both 31 and 37. Here's what's interesting though, with Chicago now being the 10 seed, Chicago is the only team of those that right now we outright own the tiebreaker. We went 3-1 against the Bulls. So being 3.5 games back, let's say, we play the Spurs on Tuesday. We better beat the Spurs regardless of playing or not. That's the team you just got to beat. They're terrible. Beat the Spurs. That puts you 3 games back, and I know Chicago plays this week and all that kind of stuff, but just for argument's sake, to get us even at the games played, 3 games back, that means you literally have to be 3 games better than the Bulls to get the 10 seed. Now, obviously, that excludes the Pacers and the Wizards. Who knows what they're going to do. But just speaking head-to-head with the Bulls, you own that tiebreaker, which is great. Indiana's complicated and even more of a long shot because they own your tiebreaker. So let's say we end up 3 games, if we're 3 games back of the Pacers, you actually have to be 4 games better than them over the last however many games, which is very tough. The Wizards, though, are the most interesting tiebreaker of all because we still have those 2 games head to head. And we lost the first 2, so that would make us 2-2 if we win both of those games.
We didn't lose the first 2.
Yeah, we got trashed.
Average margin of victory for the Wizards, 19.5 in those 2 games so far.
Rough.
Matchup hell for the Magic this year.
It's a long shot. And here's the deal. Like, those Wizards games, you lose one of them, and that tiebreaker's gone, obviously, because the Wizards will have won 3 games. But you win both of those, and that,
not only do you lose the tiebreaker, it puts a full game
on each of those, right?
You and them.
Oh, sorry. If we lose, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah. If we lose, that's what I'm saying. Like, we could be very well out of the plan after this West Coast trip, obviously. But the first game after the West Coast trip is at home against the Wizards. And so you basically a week from Tuesday we'll know. I mean, that's kind of a captain obvious statement because where we'll be in the season as far as games remaining, but like definitely
it's kind of the season.
Right. Yeah. But that Wizards game for sure. I mean, you can't lose either of those. If you lose either of those, you're done. But yeah, my thing is like it's a long shot. It is, but mathematically, 3.5 games with 14 to go. It's not unheard of. The biggest complication is the fact that you've got 2 teams between you and 10. If we were 11 and Chicago or whoever was 10 and we were 3.5 games back, I think more people would be, subscribing to the potential here. So I get it. I get where there's doubt, but I also think this team can put together a run. I do. The schedule isn't great, but it's not terrible. It's not as bad as Toronto's. Toronto's still got to play Milwaukee, Boston, and Philadelphia a total of 5 times still in their last 13, 14, whatever games it is. So I don't know. That's my long answer to your short question. But I'm not ready to just totally give up yet. More than likely it's over, but there's still a chance, and as long as there's a chance, I'm here for it.
So the Magic, Kevin, by my estimation, and I'm no mathematician, but probably have to go 10-4 over the last 14 to have a realistic shot. That includes beating the Wizards twice.
Yep. Yes, I think I don't. Yeah, 9-5 probably doesn't get it done. Now, to be fair, I sent you guys a screenshot yesterday. Like the last 10 of this group of teams is just awful. Like all of these teams are not good right now. I mean, I haven't checked it tonight. I mean, the Wizards lost to Philly tonight, so they're 3-7 in their last 10. Indy's the only one, above 500 because they've been actually playing pretty well lately. But yeah, 5-5, 5-5, 6-4, 3-7, 4-6. Like, whoosh. But you add on to that, the Raptors have a really tough schedule remaining, and they're not playing great, even though we thought once they got Jakob Poeltl, they'd be taken off, and they did it to start, but lately they haven't been. So I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, it's not like you have to go 12-2, Like, none of these teams are that good. Is 10-4 possible for this team? I think it's possible. I mean, they've been on a run like this before, earlier in the season. I see you smirking.
I am, because it's just, we haven't seen that team since that streak.
But at the same time, this whole like alternating wins and losses that the Magic have done recently, even this past week, the 4-game homestand, like they're in those games. That's the thing. And I'm not saying in it doesn't win it. Like I should get that, tattooed somewhere. Like that's not winning, but it's not like this team is terrible. It's not like you're getting blown out every night. So I don't want to get it twisted. It's a long shot. It's such a long shot, but I think it's possible. Like I still think it's possible. I don't know. I'm not ready to give up on it yet.
It is possible, but I'm much closer to like 10%, like 1 in 10 chance. It might even honestly be lower than that. I might be closer to 5% chance. Because again, it's gonna take essentially a basketball miracle for the Magic to make the play-in at this point.
Maybe 25% was a little generous. All right, maybe.
A little. If you would have said 12.5, I'd be like, okay, that's all right. You went double that, so that's. I don't want to like force the way that I feel or the way that you feel on our listeners. Like, take the information and now come to your own conclusion in terms of, what you think is going to happen. But by no means does this team suck. Their record would suggest otherwise. If you're a casual observer and you're like, man, these guys are 28-40, they're absolutely garbage. But when you're 23-20 over your last 43,
yep,
it's pretty good.
Yep.
They're above 500 for more than half of the season here. They're probably going to go, almost 3/4 of the season as a 500 basketball team. You just had a hellacious first 25 games.
Yeah, very one to forget. That was brutal.
Now, again, like we said, we've presented the information. You all can make your own conclusion on whether or not you think the season is over. And with that, we're going to dive into Tankathon, Kevin. We're going to run a nice little Tankathon simulation here. We're getting closer.
I was going to say, we like to please the people. We got the play-in people.
Yeah.
They love that segment. And now for our folks that have moved on to Wemby and Scoot and Miller or whoever else, this segment is for you.
All right, let's hit the button. And the Magic end up with the 6th and 9th overall picks in the draft. Honestly, Kevin, if you keep the Chicago pick, to me, you end up with 2 top 10 picks in this draft. I'm not going to be all that upset. Now, would I absolutely love the first pick and like the 6th pick? Of course I would. I love this team. But given the state that we are at, 6 and 10, if you absolutely need to get up to 4, if there's a guy that you want, you probably have what it takes to get it done.
Yep.
If you absolutely wanted to sell out 4-2, maybe it's possible. Like if you're going to trade anybody not named Franz or Paolo, you're going to trade 6 and 9 and multiple first-round picks to a team that maybe is multiple pieces away, like not Detroit, not Houston. Maybe a team gets lucky and jumps up into the top 4 and ends up at 2, and they don't feel like they're just one guy away. Or maybe it's a team like the New Orleans Pelicans. Sure, they would probably love to add Scoot, but maybe you can talk them into Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, Caleb. I know I'm really trying to talk myself into trading up to 2. But
you're talking about my percentages being crazy.
25% of the Magic making the play-in is probably more likely than being able to trade up to 2 for Scoot.
There it is, for sure.
Trying to talk myself into it, Kevin, but
oh man,
I would love to come away with a top 2 pick in this draft. I would love nothing more than that. But even if you end up at 6 and 9, nice. Still a very good result for the lottery for the Magic.
Yeah, I'm with you. Keeping the Bulls pick, that's a win.
That's everything.
That's everything. Not just in some ways, not just for the Magic, but just to spite the Bulls. Like I really want to have their pick. I just want to own them. You go 3-1 against them on the season, then you take their pick, and yeah, it's great.
That being said, if we end up at 1 and the Bulls end up at 2, I'll be a little sour, but I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean that you get 1 or even 2. I mean, you're just feeling great. But yeah,
as long as the Bulls, like if we end up at 2, as long as it's not the Bulls at 1, I'll be okay with that. If we're at 2 and the Bulls are at 3, I'll find a way to sleep that night.
Yeah, well, I think in anything, if that Bulls pick ends up ahead of us, that's the worst. I mean, if we end up at 5 or 6, with it, let's say we stay in our lottery position and don't move up. We're 5 or 6 or whatever it ends up being. That you just don't want the Bulls to pass you. That's the biggest thing for me. Which I guess that's a Captain Obvious statement. Because if the Bulls pass you, then that means they're going to get the pick no matter what. But so I'm with you. Keep the Bulls pick, and everything else, everything else is gravy.
Let's take a look at the week ahead, Luke.
Wow,
reflex.
Disrespect.
Straight reflex. Oh my goodness. Let's take a look at the week ahead, Kevin. You've got San Antonio on Tuesday. You're off on this 4-game road trip. San Antonio on Tuesday. Tip-offs at 8 o'clock. We got a couple of late ones this week.
Yep.
Thursday, you're in Phoenix to take on the Suns. That game's going to be on NBA TV, by the way. And then you got the Saturday, Sunday, the LA back-to-back at the Clippers on Saturday. That game's at 3 o'clock Eastern. And then Sunday, you got the Lakers at 9:30 Eastern. Kevin, what do you think happens this week with the Magic?
Oof, man. Let's look at this. San Antonio got to be a dub. Like, no reason not to win that game. So there's one. Oh, gosh. Oh, man. I just got done talking about this whole
no
play-in
Kevin Durant.
thing.
They have no depth now.
I know. It's a very winnable game. I want to do better than 2-2. But I think 2-2 is probably more realistic. Here's the deal. I'm essentially picking for Luke in your guys' competition right now. Is how we've done this in the past. So,
well, Luke would say like 1-3, 0-4.
Yeah, Luke would say 0-4.
No, he'd have us beating the Spurs.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I think 2-2 is probably definitely more realistic than 3-1. My heart says 3-1, but I'm gonna say 2-2.
With what games?
San Antonio. I'll say Phoenix, but I really think it can be any one of those last three. I mean, those other two LA teams, they just don't scare me. And you know, Clippers in the playoffs maybe, but like a one-off Saturday afternoon at noon Pacific time against the Clippers, any of those games are winnable. But I'm gonna say San Antonio and Phoenix, I guess. No, I'm changing it. I'm doing San Antonio and Clippers. I'm picking the Clippers game. It's a nooner. They're going to be asleep. That's what I'm doing. I'm saying Spurs and Clippers.
I'm going to bookend the week with wins. You get the win beginning of the road trip with San Antonio, and then you beat the Lakers that last game. I know the Lakers have been playing better as of late. D'Angelo Russell is back in the lineup, but no LeBron James. And you're playing the Lakers at what should still be called Staples Center. And I just think our guys are going to get up for that game. I think that's a game that they're really desperately going to want to win. And I just selfishly, personally need them to beat the Lakers. So I'm going to say that I'm not going to say 3-1 just, for this team to, I mean, it's not impossible. I think you're going to beat San Antonio. You can win that Phoenix game. And then I think either way they split that LA series. I don't think you lose both of those. You could be right, like that awkward start time, noon Pacific. I could see them winning any of these games. All of them, probably not. But I'm going to pick them to kind of bookend the week with wins there at San Antonio and then beat those Lakers.
That would be fun.
Get some revenge.
A week from now, that game will be going on. We're recording this Sunday night. It's almost 11 p.m. We're going to record after that Lakers game.
Basically, midnight.
You know us. We're Monday and Thursday. No matter what, rain, snow, sleet. And so if that means the game is over at midnight, we got to record after. We are. And so for us to record after a win would be a lot more fun than if we lost that one. But I was going to say two other things. Okay, first off, I know he's not an Orlando Magic guy anymore, but obviously feel bad for Mo Bamba. Out for the next 4 weeks or so. So obviously stinks for him.
Basically the rest of the season.
Regular season, yeah. Obviously, I assume they'll sneak into the playoffs the way they've been playing. So I think they've got a pretty decent. No, back up. No lead in the West is decent right now. It's so tight. But yeah, obviously hope he gets back and gets to play some playoff basketball for them. The other thing I was going to say is we know at least 3 diehard Magic fans are going to be in LA for these games. So if there's any others out there that are going to be there, I don't know, maybe reach out to Jonathan Zahner. I mean, he's going to be there. Maybe there's going to be like some kind of Magic meetup.
There's another one of our patrons that's going to be there.
Might need to be some kind of Magic meetup in LA for that weekend. I don't know. How about this? If you're going and you're not one of the 3 guys we already know, reach out to us on Twitter and we'll connect all the Magic folks and they can meet up and have some fun there in what is it, the City of Angels? Is that LA? So should be a fun weekend.
Not a lot of Angels there, but that's what they call themselves.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing I want to shout out. I actually this weekend at the hotel that I was staying at, we're walking through like the little arcade, like they have like this like water park area, and I'm walking through the arcade out to that, and I'm sharing the elevator with a gentleman. And he's like, "Oh, a big Magic fan, huh?" He saw my tattoo, and we got to talking, and then our our like pool chairs were kind of near each other. So it was nice meeting him. He had never heard of the podcast, obviously, so I had to shout it out, let him know, check it out, and hopefully he likes it. But it was good meeting you, nice talking to you, and yeah, Kev, what do you say we win some basketball games this week? It'd be nice.
It would be awesome. It'd be really cool. It'd be awesome if a week from now we're doing our late night recording to a 3-1 road trip, and now all of a sudden playing conversations are really real. I'm just saying, you never know. You just never know. So tune in all week for some late night Magic basketball, and we'll see what happens.
I would love nothing more than next Sunday for us to be sitting here talking about how we once again believe the Magic are going to make the play-in. I would love that. Would love for the Magic to go 4-0. Magic go 4-0. You make up at least a game, if not two, on all of those teams above us this week because they've been all playing like dog crap. So
yep.
Here's to wishing and hoping, and again, hopefully we can talk about the Magic's revitalized play-in chances on the next episode. But we're going to wrap this one up. For producer Kevin Tucker and Luke Sylvia earlier in the episode, this has been Jonathan Osborne, and you guys have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!